Day 45. I'm reading Reader Come Home by Marian Wolf. Page 168, letter 8. Building a Beliterate Brain. And there's two quotes one by Stuart Brand. Goes, defining potential long-term problems is a great public service. Over-defining solutions early is not. And the second one by Lisa Guernsey and Michael Levine. It goes like, the depth of the challenge. There are no well-known, tried and true curricula for teaching young children how to use online information or think critically about visual information while they are simultaneously learning to read prints, listen and speak in full sentences. This is uncharted terrain. Okay, dear reader, I have little doubt that the next generation will go beyond us in ways we cannot imagine at this moment. As Alec Rose, the author of the Industries of the Future, wrote, 65% of the jobs our present preschoolers will hold in the future haven't even been invented yet. Their lives will be extended much beyond ours. They may well think very different thoughts. They will need the most sophisticated armamentarium of abilities that humans have ever acquired to date. Vastly elaborated deep reading processes that are shared with and expanded through coding, designing, and programming skills, all of which will be transformed by a future that none of us, from Stuart Brand, Sundar Pichai, Susan Wojcicki, Juan Enriquez, and Steve Gollins, to Craig Venter and Jeff Bezos, can now predict. Building the kind of pluripotential brain circuitry that can prepare the youngest members of our species to think with the knowledge and cognitive flexibility they will need is one task that we, their guardians, can attend to in the short time we share the planet. Wherever their next iterations, the future of the reading circuit will require an understanding of the limits and possibilities of both the literacy-based circuit and digital-based ones. This knowledge involves examining the often contradicting strengths, weaknesses, and sometimes opposing values that characterize the processes emphasized by different mediums and media. We need to study the cognitive, social, emotional, and moral impact of the affordance of present mediums and work toward the best possible integration of their characteristics for future circuits. If we are successful, we will recapitulate in our next generation's physiology Shakespeare's great lesson about love. Mine own, and not mine own. I don't get it. The philosopher Nicholas of Cusa can help us. He believed that the best way to choose between two seemingly equal but contradicting perspectives, what he called the coincidence of opposite, was to assume the stance of learned ignorance, in which one strives to thoroughly understand both positions and then goes outside them to evaluate and decide the course to be taken. Knowledge about the reading brain and the directions of its future iterations requires yoking research from multiple disciplines, from cognitive neuroscience and technology to the humanities and social sciences. No one of these disciplines is sufficient to make the kind of decisions we need to make. Each of them adds something essential to the combination of knowledge we need to develop. Nicholas of Cusa stance of learning ignorance. Within this context, I proposed the development of a beliterated reading brain. Beliterate. A developmental proposal. We start by building a childhood that is not split between two mediums of communication, but rather, in Walter Ong's words, is steeped in the best of both, with more options still to come. You already know what I think about the print medium's role and the gradual introduction to a second digital medium in the first 5 years. The second 5 are our real challenge. I propose a relatively simple, perhaps novel design for introducing different forms of print-based and digital-based reading and learning during the 5 to 10-year age period. Its overall blueprint is based on what we know about nurturing dual language learners whose father and mother each speak a separate language, and the parent who spends the most time with child speaking the language that is less spoken outside the home. In this way, young bilingual children learn to speak both languages well. They gradually get beyond the inevitable errors that arise in going from one language to another, and ultimately are able to tap into their deepest thoughts in either language. Very importantly, during this process, they learn to become expert code switchers. By the time they reach adulthood, their brains are masterpieces of cognitive and linguistic flexibility, which we can see in fascinating ways. That's good. Many years ago, aided by insights by my Swiss friends Thomas and Heidi Bally, I created a naming speed test called the Rapid Alternating Stimulus (RAS) test, now used by neuropsychologists and educators to predict and diagnose dyslexia. Basically, it asks a person to name a series of 50 well-known items in different categories, specifically letters, numbers, and colors. The person has to switch from one category to the next as fast as possible, which requires both considerable automatized knowledge and a great deal of flexibility. An unexpected finding in the various comparison studies was that bilingual adults were faster on those tasks than were the monolingual peers. Dual language learners had acquired far more verbal flexibility than single language learners had. Okay. As shown by groundbreaking work by Claude Goldenberg and Elliot Friedlander at Stanford University and at Save the Children, bilingual and multilingual speakers have spent years of going back and forth between languages. Not only are they more flexible in retrieving words and concepts, but there is some research that indicates that they are also more capable of leaving their particular viewpoints and taking on the perspective of others. Wow, that's really nice. That is what I want our young nascent readers to become expert, flexible code switchers between print and digital mediums now and later, between and among the multiple future communication mediums. My thoughts about how this would work over time are inspired by the Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky's depiction of the development of thoughts and language in young child, first separated and then increasingly connected. Thus, I conceptualize the initial development of learning to think in each medium as largely separated into distinct domains in the first school years, until a point in time when the particular characteristic of the two mediums are each well developed and internalized. Okay. This is an essential point. I want the child to have parallel levels of fluency, if you will, in each medium, just as if he or she were similarly fluent in speaking Spanish and English. In this way, the uniqueness of the cognitive processes honed by each medium would be there from the start. My unproven hypothesis is that such a co-development might prevent atrophy seen in adults, which when screen reading processes bleed over into print reading and eclipse the slower print reading processes. Rather, children would learn from the outset that each medium, like each language, has its own rules and useful characteristics, which includes its own best purpose, pace, and rhythms. That's a really nice thought. Okay, I should stop here. Thanks so much. This was Minky. Please correct me if you can. Bye.